Hello everyone. One of the main questions I get asked from students is, Miss Abbasi, how do I revise effectively in science? Now there's many different strategies and techniques you can use when it comes to revision. However, there's one main one I would like to share with you, which is the 15-minute method. I've tried this out with most of my classes, and in particular with year 10, 11, 12 or 13, the feedback from students has been really positive. So over the next several slides, I'm going to highlight the main problems for revision, go through the 15-minute method and share some exam tips. So the main problems for revision. Number one, revise last minute. Now this can be really dangerous because if you do leave your revision to last minute, there's a lot of pressure, you become anxious and you don't give enough time to recall the information. A lot of students find it hard to summarise the key points. Sometimes when I look at a PowerPoint or a revision guide or a textbook, the text can be overwhelming. So we're going to go through different ways in which we can summarise the key points in a student-friendly way. A lot of students do not use a specification or checklist. Now this is incredibly important. If you use the specification, then you'll know exactly what content you need to revise for the exam. Avoid tackling difficult topics. Now this is something I used to do when I used to revise for my exam. I used to leave the difficult topics to last minute, and this didn't help me at all, because what happens is if you don't tackle the difficult topics, you leave it to one side, and if it comes up in the exam, then you don't know how to answer the questions. Past papers are not completed. This is one of the best forms to develop those examination techniques. So you may spend hours writing fantastic notes or revision notes and reading through your work, but if you cannot apply that knowledge into paper in the form of an exam question, then you won't be able to develop those skills. And of course, exam technique. When you read a question, do you do it really quickly? Do you underline the key words? Do you check how much time is allocated per question? So there's so many different factors we can look into. Right, so what is the 15-minute method about? Number one, you spend 15 minutes revising the key concepts. Now in order to do that is to make good, concise, specific notes, and there's many different ways in which you can present this. Mind maps are really good because what happens is you can get different areas of a specific topic and consolidate them, and they make really good links. This is also a really good technique to actually test your prior knowledge. A lot of students find it useful to use post-it notes, and by using post-it notes you can really quickly jot down the ideas or the facts and stick it around. Also, if you look at the cue cards up here, these are also really good, especially if you're travelling to school, back and forth. You can quickly take out the cards and go through your information. So you spend 15 minutes picking a topic. So in this case, if I was to look at global warming, open up my textbook, 15 minutes, I'll do a mind map and on the key things that comes up with global warming. So talk about greenhouse gases, the difference between global warming and greenhouse effect, using the key terminologies as well. Then you spend 10 minutes, you do an exam question which relates to that area of specification. So in this case, I will find an exam question on global warming. There's many different websites we can use when it comes to getting past paper questions, or you can even ask your teachers and they will send you loads of resources. But you need to make sure that exam question relates to the revision notes that you had done previously in the 15 minutes. 5 minutes. Mark using the mark scheme. Now this does take some time and training, so if you're not comfortable in using the mark scheme and you feel like you're not doing it correctly, then first time round or a few times get your teacher to mark the work and they can explain to you how to use a mark scheme properly, because there's many cases when students mark work and when the teacher goes through that the grading is different or the total marks is different because students don't understand how to use the mark scheme. After that, 10 minutes, pick out the areas you got wrong, go back to your notes and add more details. So for example, if I did an exam question on global warming and I got mixed up with my greenhouse gases, I will then go back to my notes, read up on greenhouse gases and maybe add additional notes to help strengthen my understanding in that area. Now this is the most important part. We're coming to the end of the 50-minute technique method. The last 10 minutes, you must pick a similar type of question, complete and mark. So, for example, if I initially got greenhouse gases wrong, I went through the notes and I thought, right, let me have another go at this. So I'm going to pick a similar type of question on global warming, especially in relation to greenhouse gases, and I have another go at it. And this is a really good way to recall the information. And you also get to see whether you've made improvements on your areas of weaknesses. So that's the 15-minute methods. Have a go at it, and hopefully you will find it useful when it comes to your revision. The next several slides, we're going to talk about different ways to revise and exam tips. So, in relation to the topic I was talking previously, global warming, here we've got a section, human activities and global warming. In front of you, you've got a range of different visuals. Now, pictures can be really, really good to help with revision. Look at graphs, look at different pictures and videos. So, highly recommend videos. There's loads on YouTube on different areas, and visually you get an understanding of the science behind it. Here's an example of the specification, and as you can see in front of you, it tells you exactly what students should be revising for that specific area. This is your guideline, and it helps you to stay focused in that specific area and don't go off on tangent and learn different things which you're not going to be tested on. If you don't like this layout, an alternative could be a checklist. Now, if you cannot find a checklist, your teacher should provide you with a checklist. It is very good, it's clear. This one in particular I like is RAG rated, red, amber and green. So at the start of the topic, before you do your mind maps and revision notes, you may want to go through each strand and see where do you stand. So it might be all reds, then halfway through it might move to amber, but by the end of it, you should be getting green. So try the 15-minute method at the start, see what you get, and by the end of it, you should be hitting more greens. Now, so remember, when it comes to revision, use a revision sheet, make your key notes, and just to let you know, an example here, 1, 2, 3, 4 has come from the specification or the checklist. And one thing that's really good about this is broken down all the little subtopics that you need to know. So rather than having a huge topic and being overwhelmed, the checklist or specification will help you to break down your revision. Here's an exam question. So now moving on to exam tips. When it comes to an exam question, make sure you read the question more than once. It's really, really important that you do so. When you look at an exam question, underline the keywords. Use a highlighter, different colour pen, just so that when you do your answers, you can go back to the question and make sure you include the keywords in your answers. So, planning your answer, especially when it comes to a 6-mark question. Break down the question and work out the main aspects that should be in your answer. So going through the question, take your time. Content, keywords, definition that should be in your answer. Make sure you underline these and you should understand these. And context, is everything in your answer relating back to the question really important? So once you've read your question and you corrected it and you're happy with it, once you've read your answer, go back to the question and make sure you've actually answered what the question was asking you. And then you mark your work. So what went well, even better if. And the most important thing is every time you go through an exam question, the areas that you didn't do well, even better if, go back to your revision, read your notes, watch a video, maybe you want to add some more detail, then attempt a similar question. And finally, here's an example of a mark scheme. Now, this is a 6-mark question and it's quite overwhelming, it's quite difficult when you look at the different strands and different levels. So going back to my original point, if you're not comfortable with using the mark scheme, when you do a question like this, maybe first time or second time round, you may need to sit down with your teacher, get your teacher to mark it and make sure they explain how to mark a 6-mark question. Because doing in the classroom is very different to when you do revision at home. When you're at home, you're by yourself and you can easily award extra marks when you actually don't get that mark. So in many cases, you might give yourself a 5, but if I was to mark your work, I might give it a 2. So you must understand the mark scheme. In that instance, speak to your teacher and they will guide you through it. And that's the end of my revision session. So I hope you find it useful. Have a go and let me know the outcome.